So Jane is a compassionate and experienced wellness coach and a naturopath with over 20 years of experience in health, nutrition, and mental well-being. She's based in Brisbane, Queensland. She holds a bachelor's degree in health sciences and has just completed her postgraduate in counselling and psychotherapy. And she's been doing that while she's been learning about this incredible product as well. She is totally dedicated to empowering individuals, particularly women, to navigate life's challenges with confidence and vitality. Naturopath Jane is an absolute pHix advocate. So welcome, Jane.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you. So I guess the first question was really what were my first thoughts,
Yes.
being in path and looking at the product and I'll just be really, really clear. Like I was researching this subject for my fourth book, and you're not going to believe it, but it was about visceral fat. And this was even before I joined pHix. So I was on the journey. And I was looking at, writing about insulin resistance and diabetes and sugar metabolism, ACA, weight, fat loss, and this is what I was doing. So when I saw it, I thought, if this did what the doctors were saying, looking at the research and all the clinical studies, well, this is really going to be groundbreaking. And that was really just my thought, because I do predominantly work with women. And every single woman that I see in my clinical practice, I would say 99% are not happy with what they look like. They're just not. And as they're aging, it becomes more and more evident. And so, of course, that was really my first impression. I thought, this is great. So personally, for myself, I'm always looking for things which are going to help me with my own health. And I've been on this journey for quite some time. So I tend to gravitate. I'm very curious and I'm very open to things which are going to really help me. And that's really, and also my clinic clients too, because I tend to see a lot of chronically ill people that have been to many naturopaths, many doctors, and they're not getting the answers. So I use pathology, health appraisal forms, and I work out a strategy for people. So my whole intention in this Zoom is to explain how effective pHix is and how can we speed up the process, right? How can we speed up the process for the pHix to be, we need to allow the pHix to do what it's meant to do. And that is like rebooting the body, regulating ourselves and moving the visceral fat, because that's really what we signed up for.
Why is the mature hops extract so unique? Because I know a lot of the naturopaths talk about hops in general, but the mature hops extract or the bitter extract of the hops, why is that so unique?
Well, in clinical practice, I've been using hops for the past 20 years, but it's a very different extract, the one that we have. And it works quite differently within the body. So it's not like the normal hops. So you can go research on Google and you can put in hops and estrogen, hops and this, hops and that, but it may not be this particular extract. And that's where we can get really, I guess, lost in it. So with this particular extract, it just appears to have the ability to break down fat without losing the muscle. And it's brilliant because it has this synergistic effect on the whole body. And so when we're working with herbal extracts of any kind, there are many parts, and it generally doesn't do just like one thing in the body. It's very different to medicine made in laboratories. They tend to single out a particular part of anything, and then they sell it in pharmacies, and then, that is why we get a lot of side effects with all these drugs, because it doesn't work so well in the body. So finding this extract, it has many, many properties that will help modulate and regulate the body. For instance, what we've found just by the testimonials, the research, and we're finding that once people start, they have fewer cravings because it tends to stabilize the blood sugar. But I'm going to come back to the blood sugar, the glucose in the blood, because I think this is a main main issue that we have. And it also increases energy. And why is that? Well, it supports the digestion, helps with the metabolism, and we know that it activates through energy the thermogenesis, which is the burning part. And so it also works with digestion and also all the absorption. And we know because it improves the enzyme production. And the enzyme production, we're talking about your pancreas and all the pancreatic enzymes. We're talking about the liver bile, the hydrochloric acid, all of this sort of stuff, right? So what we do with the digestion with this as well, it also reduces bloating because it helps support balance the gut. And there is a property which is antimicrobial, and that's really, really good. It also improves sleep. So many people have said to me that they can sleep better, they're more calmer, and it's very much modulates the vagus nerve, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to go through these in a little bit more detail. And also it lowers the inflammation. Because you remember, where there's inflammation, there's a little bit of acid, there's pain, and eventually disease. So we need to bring that inflammation down. And of course, what else it does, it sharpens the memory. And if you watch the doctors at the round table, and I would recommend that everyone does that. And also a really good thing is that it makes you feel full. Testimonies that are coming through are so many. They're experiencing really good results. And I'm not talking about half a dozen. I'm talking about hundreds now, hundreds. Mm. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about, I guess now I'm just going to go into a couple of these subjects. Again, I can't cover everything. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the cognitive function, the vagus nerve, and how that works. It modulates that fight and flight response. So in modern day world, we are constantly in this fight and flight response, especially in the last few years. It's been really, really stressful for a lot of people. And in history with our ancestors, the thing is that we've basically, our ancestors maybe were only chased by a bear maybe once. So they get that fight and flight. However, now with people, the way that we're living our life, we're getting this stress response in fight and flight on a daily basis. So what this does, it increases our cortisol and adrenaline, smashes through our body. Guess what it does? It starts impairing our mitochondria, and that's the powerhouse of every single cell. And so what happens is when it impairs the nervous system, and that really controls a lot of the bodily functions, including metabolism and also breaking up all the visceral fat, it actually blocks it. So if you're in this high cortisol and high adrenaline, everything shuts down, everything. However, I don't really have time to go on about everything about the extract because I know that Lillian has a few more questions for me, and I really want to cover as much as I can. But if you want to go into what it does, please listen to the doctors at the round table, write notes. They're really incredibly important. But look, I see this extract as a holistic approach. It's quite different to mainstream medicine, and mainstream medicine is very different. And we have an amazing emergency system, but in regards to keeping us well, it's a completely different ballgame because there is a definite gap. And I tell my clinic clients all the time, there's a definite gap to when you're born to when you get diagnosed with something. And that's actually where naturopaths fit in, that little gap. But as an analogy, mainstream medicine very much treating you like a motor car. As an example, like if your car needs new tires, then you get new tires. Or if the engine breaks down, replace the engine. However, we know that the body can't give us that healing ability just by focusing on one organ and one system. Because remember, everything is connected. And we need to be looking after and supporting all of ourselves, all our mind, our body. We can even talk about soul. That's really moving forward. That's, in my opinion, it's moving forward. I'm sure other people think about that too. So we're all connected, and that is why pHix is so effective. And the good thing is more and more people are waking up more, and this is why I believe this herbal extract has the ability to do that, because it has so many capabilities within the body. It's simple, it's really safe, it's very, very easy. And as I mentioned before, thanks to Nathan, has researched it extensively, collated all the information for us. And I'm sure it's everywhere on different pages. I'm sure you can do that.
That's amazing, Jane. Our bodies are very smart, and what I'm loving about hearing what you're saying and what we've been learning, when a lot of people have been attracted to this product because of the ability for it to be a fat loss product, but we're finding so many other benefits. And for some people, the ancillary benefits, the other benefits are even more exciting than the fat loss. But speaking of fat, until this product, I just thought fat was fat. And I knew we had different layers of fat, but I didn't really understand what they were. I'm just like, yeah, this is fat, but what is visceral fat? And is it healthy to have visceral fat, or how much is healthy to have or okay to have?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Well, the amount is around 10% of your body fat. That's the amount. So you can calculate your visceral fat level by subtracting 10% of your total body percentage. And you can do that with a fat analyzer. And sometimes, scales can do that too. So the visceral fat is generally considered the bad fat. And that's associated with insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. So pHix seems to have the ability to convert the white fat, which is storing the calories, into the brown fat that actually burns into the energy. There's also beige fat, would you believe? There's actually brown and beige and white. We have all of that. And the other day, actually, someone said to me, how do you remove it from your body? Like, how does that fat go away? And I'm thinking, that's a really good question. Well, it's actually breathing. So breath work is really good. And a lot of us have a problem with oxygen. We actually just like shallow breathe quite often. So breathing out carbon dioxide, urine, sweat, bowel movements, the pHix turns it into liquid and gas. And that's basically, how it is. But I will mention that sometimes it takes a little bit to shift in some people because they have stored it for a period of time. And I'm going to go into that shortly, I think.
That's a really good question, because like I've even seen in the chat, some people have had some good results and then they've stalled. And I know that the doctors of the Roundtable and other practitioners have been saying we really need to be on it for at least 12 weeks. So I'm now saying to people who are wanting to try this, you need to be committed to a minimum of 12 weeks or wait until you are. Because if you're not able to do this for a minimum of 12 weeks, then it's not really worth starting. You might as well just wait, because I have had people in the earlier days taking it for 2 or 3 weeks and saying, it doesn't work, I'm out of here, like it's not working. So what should we expect after that 8 to 12 weeks and beyond? And what happens, and why do the scales not change? Or they do change for some and they don't change for other people, for example?
That's a good question. So we'll just back up just a second. Is that firstly, it's recommended that we take 2 doses a day. So if you're planning on taking 1 dose a day, it's going to be slow road, very slow. So you need to take at least 1.2 ml in the morning and 1.2 ml in the afternoon. The next question is, sort of disagree with Lily and how she said, the 12 to 4 weeks. I would say so much longer, purely because 12 to 14 weeks, yeah, it's a good start, and that's correct, right? It's good, but that really is the initial phase. If you or someone has had an illness for, say, 10 or 20 years, or has been overweight for 10 or 20 years, I say it's at least 1 month per year that you need. You can't expect this to be like a magic thing and just all of a sudden reboots you in 12 weeks. This is long term. I plan myself to be on this long term. I can't see an end date. I just can't. And Dr. Phil talks about it in the videos. I don't know which one it is, but he talks about it. And what we need to do with the pHix is it needs to slowly reboot the body, and that's going to take time. You can't just repair the body in like a week. I just smile when someone says, oh, I've been on it a week and I haven't lost any weight. And I even do a bigger smile to say, I've been on it a month. I've lost centimeters, but I haven't lost weight. I will address that. But I'm just saying that this is a long-term thing, a long-term thing. So in the essence, it empowers the body to heal itself, and everyone is uniquely different. We know that because every single snowflake is different. If you put a little snowflake, you'll notice every snowflake is different. We are different. And it's about not comparing yourself with other people. And we tend to do that all the time. And then we become really negative. But I'll also talk about that too. So look, it's not a quick result in one thing, but we just need to allow for it to do its job and take its time. And now, what we're hearing back from the doctors in the clinical practice and my own clinic too, is that some people they are getting really fast results. They are. And then others are not. And there's many reasons, and it's very complex. But I do think there is one key factor, and I am going to talk about it because I haven't heard anyone really talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it soon.
Good.
You know, it can be really distressing if you are going really slow because we compare ourselves. And if you're a woman, we do that all the time. We just compare ourselves all the time. And that really messes with our brain. And so you might be asking the question, and I'm sure because I've sort of been glazing at these little comments, that you might ask the question, how come it's not working? You know, I see other people's testimonials and it's not working for me. You know, some people are saying they've lost this weight and they feel amazing. I just want you to relax with it. Don't worry about it too much. It takes time because your body, you need to help your body. You just need to keep taking it because it will eventually click in. So we need to have healthy expectations on the removal of the fat. And it's better in a way to have this visceral fat to be removed slowly because the fat stores lots of nasties. It stores parasites, it stores bacteria, it stores viruses, it stores funguses, candida. So if you remove really quickly, you may get quite sick. But here's the thing, while you're waiting for the product, for those who haven't got the product, then start detoxing your body because then the fix is actually going to work. Because if you don't detoxify, your organs are going to work so hard. And if you're on a low nutrient diet, low protein diet, and you're not absorbing well in your digestive system and not using your bowels really often, you're going to get a bucket load of side effects. And that's your detoxing. So, you know, we want to slowly release this type of fat because of the storage of the detoxing. And we also, what we want to do is we want to reduce the inflammation, not increase it. And in the blood tests that I ask my clients to take is the CRP one in their blood test because I want to know their inflammation level. And that can really impact the removal of the visceral fat, your inflammation within your body. So where you have inflammation, as I mentioned before, you have acid, you have pain, and eventually disease. And it's a very important factor to regulate your inflammation. So another reason, I do have a main reason, but one reason also is that you could be drinking too many liquids, right? You could be drinking too much water. And the thing is that not everybody needs 10 glasses of water a day. That's a bit of a myth. So if you're taking loads of fluids, you don't need to have so much water. And if you have too much water, you're going to dilute your electrolytes, cause damage to your body because you need a balance of potassium and sodium. Because the potassium sodium opens up the cell and then the water goes in and then moves it out. This is how it actually works. So if you notice that if your weight goes up, who's had that weight has gone up in like the first week, that's really common. And it's generally not that you're gaining the fat. It's most probably that you've got fluid. It depends on when you're weighing yourself, but you know, it really does depend on your bowels when you're opening your bowels. It's also, you might have a drainage issue. your lymphatic system may not be functioning optimally. So if you sit around all day and you're not exercising and walking and moving, because that's the only way your lymphatic system is going to be pumping all the waste through your body, because the blood has the heart, so it has a pump, but the lymphatic doesn't. And 1 in 6 people retain fluid and have got lymphedema. That is a massive amount of people. So no wonder the pHix is actually not getting to where it's going to go. And you've also got to remember to not add too much salt. People say, oh, you need a lot of salt. Really? Well, if you put a whole wad of salt in a glass and you drink it, you're actually going to smash your kidneys and you'll get really puffy and there's going to be fluid retention. And the pHix won't get to where it needs to go. And also there's lots of sodium found in the foods that we eat. You never want to buy anything packaged. You want to get whole foods. And again, that throws out your potassium and sodium levels. Why? Because on the back of the food packet, you have high levels of sodium, or sodium, which damages your mitochondria. And then you have potassium, not enough potassium. And also they've got lots of seed oils in there. Every single packet, you might want to just start checking those. And that's also going to hinder the pHix getting to where it needs to go. So the thing is that if you're not absorbing nutrients, not producing the pancreatic enzymes, the bile in the liver, or not enough hydrochloric acid in the stomach, it's going to be extremely difficult to you to digest food. And the food that you're eating might be disrupting your body because you can't make healthy cells out of tacos, out of pizza, out of fried foods, out of alcohol. Alcohol is poison to the brain. It will cause glycation. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So it's also the diet. What on earth are you eating? And most people I see have low levels of protein. Grains, I don't eat any grains. I think wheat should be banned right now, especially in Australia. It causes a lot of problems. And so also the sugars and the fats, this is what we're eating. And of course the insulin, right? I believe the insulin is the biggest factor why people can't get the response that they are having with the pHix. And I would recommend you go do a bucket load of research like I have. And I'm telling you, it is the insulin. And when you eat starchy foods, which is your breads, which is your rice, if you have a bowl of rice, it's like having half a cup of sugar. Your potatoes and your pastas and your fruits or your chocolate cake, same deal. It goes in your body, in glucose, skyrockets in your body. You get this massive insulin response. The pHix can't help. You know why? Because it destroys the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the powerhouse. You may have learnt that in biology. I remember learning that in biology. And so the powerhouse is the cells, right? Then your body can't function. And the thing is, right, is that when you have all these sugar spikes in your body, you know what happens? The sugar, right, the glucose calls up the pancreas and says, yo, pancreas, I need some insulin. So she I'll call insulin, I'll just be, politically correct and using pronouns. Insulin, she gets tired. You know what she does? If there's too much sugar, the body wants to protect it. So guess where it goes? The sugar goes into the liver, the pancreas, and guess what it stores? Fat. So here you are having the pHix. And then what's the next thing you're doing? You're having all the starchy foods, you're on the chocolate cake, you're on the sugars, the glucose goes through the roof. And I believe that's probably 80% of the problem. And so, so diabetics, I go for the carnivore diet, 100%. Autoimmune, carnivore diet. Gut problems, carnivore diet. And I know that that's not naturopathic. I understand that. But once you actually do the research, it's quite conclusive. So the thing is that when you're doing that and your body is dysregulated, you're counteracting everything that pHix is trying to do. So it's trying to get rid of the fat. And what are you doing? You're putting all the fat back in your body and the sugar. And you might say, well, I don't need to change my diet when I'm on the pHix. Yes and no. That is correct, because we do have people that eat crap and still lose weight. There are people out there, but they're not healthy. They're not healthy. And so the thing is that everybody functions really differently. And remember, there's just lots and lots of different factors. And, you know, but there are ways of having sugar that's not going to spike your insulin. And I do have tips for you if I have time, because that's sort of getting off the subject. But you can still have sugar and carbohydrates and rice and all that sort of stuff. But it's when you actually eat it is the key. So you don't have the spikes and you don't have the fat deposits in your body. And the visceral fat is basically causing diabetes. And the stats are not pretty. They're not pretty. We have 1 billion people on planet Earth that have got insulin problems, insulin resistance, over 300. I think it's like 340. I'm going off on a tangent right now. It's all my stats coming out of my brain. But there's like 340 every day in Australia being diagnosed with diabetes. How about that? We have an epidemic, and here we are trying to counteract with the pHix because we want this magic pill for us, and we're not prepared to research. You go, well, maybe it's my diet. Maybe that's it. Isn't that strange? But however, even though I say that, to about 75 to 80%, people are still losing weight on this because it is absolutely brilliant. And I recommend this to every single person, unless you're breastfeeding or you're pregnant. And I don't suggest anything then. And that's, you know, everyone's an individual in that one, but that's the only thing. And probably children under 10 because they're still developing. And we really don't want them to have an image of them being fat. And that is a bit of an issue too, you know, on a mental perspective. So anyhow, another question is you may notice that you lose centimeters but the scales are not moving. Yeah, that's really stressful.
A common question, Jane, and people are like, but why, you know, why is that? Because when you release fat, it should reflect on the scales, right? And then we talk about muscle, but not everybody on this is building muscle. As a matter of fact, probably a lot of us are not, you know, physically building muscle. So, and we're so conditioned to wanting the scales to move, aren't we? Yeah.
That's it. And that is such an interesting thing because it's really sort of off-putting because you're on the pHix and it's weird because you're losing all these centimeters, but the scales are not changing, and the shirt feels really loose but you're getting other things happening in your body, like you're sleeping better and your mood's a little bit better, and maybe your bowel motions are better and all this sort of stuff, and that's all really good. But you see, the thing is that this is what I believe. If you are losing centimeters but not weight on the scale, you are heading in the right direction. And you need to keep going and don't be despondent because it's got nothing to do with the scales, right? Because the scales, that shows your weight only. It doesn't break down how much you weigh, the muscle, the fat, the water, the organs, and everything else. So this is why I say, side note, it's always good to write down how you're feeling before you start. Scan it. Someone can maybe pop in the chat line the MHE3 app. I would highly recommend it before you start. But if you've already started, just do that because it's going to make you feel better because you're going to be noticing the centimeters that go. But I would say measure yourself just to give you confirmation. Go on the app, use any app, whatever it is. The thing is that, you know, weight always fluctuates depending on what's going on in your body. It could even be undigested food, you know. So the thing is that if you're losing the centimeters, things are moving, ketones are working within your body, it's burning the fat, and I would just keep on going.
We first started hearing about this product, that those of us that were hearing about it at the very start, and I think in America they have a little bit of a different mindset, although they're coming our way now, because when we first were introduced to this, they were saying, oh, you can eat what you want, drink what you want, and this is going to work. But we're like, that's not what we're about. We are wanting to help people to make healthier choices. And if this product can facilitate that, then that's a big bonus. It can help facilitate people making better choices. And when you start to feel better about yourself on this product, whether it's releasing fat, having a slimmer face, better sleep, better cognition, less aches and pains, you feel like doing other things, like you feel like getting out and exercising more. You think twice about having that chocolate bar or that ice cream or that crunchy, yummy, that's my thing, is crunchy bread, is that crunchy piece of bread, because you're feeling good in your body and you don't want to muck that. I've noticed a couple of other questions come up about people who have stalled in their fat loss, and still people who are stuck on, but I'm still not releasing anything. I'm not seeing any change in my body. People are saying I'm getting other side benefits, but I really would love to release that fat. So what would be I know you've really talked about a lot of tips, but if you were just to give a quick 3 or 4 top tips for those people who have been using the product for maybe 8 or 10 or 12 weeks, they believe they're eating a healthy diet. Believing and doing might be 2 different things, but what tips would you give them to really maybe help get things moving for them? Because I know I've got a couple of people personally who are getting a bit frustrated because they're seeing so many other people have great results, but they're not experiencing them just yet.
Because I mentioned before that everyone is really uniquely different and we eat differently. Some people do intermittent fasting. Other people have, 6 meals a day, including snacks. They're constantly eating. They're also eating outside daylight hours. And some people overeat and they really strain their bodies. So the thing is that you've really got to ask yourself, am I hungry, thirsty for water hungry, bored hungry, insulin hungry, or is it just a habit every time I go past the cupboard, I take a few biscuits? So what's happening is you're spiking your sugar all the time. And I do believe that is one of the main culprits, is your insulin spikes. And also, we have been programmed and brainwashed, marketed heavily to in regards to the food that we eat. And we know, I know most of us don't have a high protein level. And if we have a lot of carbohydrate, for instance, when we go to bed instead of protein, we're going to wake up craving food because our body wants the glucose and you won't get into ketosis. However, if you eat your protein, which is, if you're not doing heavy lifting, it's usually one gram of protein to 1 kilo of whatever you weigh. So that is it. Also digestion, I would be looking at, are you digesting foods? How's your nutrient status? I'm not really a big believer in vitamins, so to speak, but I do believe in the nutrients, and that's why I'm really excited about the fulvic acid, because it's got like 90 minerals and nutrients, and most people are nutrient deficient. And when we are nutrient deficient, our body can't really function. And I know the question is, okay, how come I'm not losing weight? Well, it's all about self-awareness. What am I really doing? Am I addicted to all the starchy, sugary, fat foods because they can be very highly addictive? It's like dopamine rush to the brain. It's that dopamine. Even when you're having sex, you have this rush of dopamine to the brain. And also, so there's all of that. And so we become highly addictive to the food. So that's probably what I would question. What am I eating? Why am I eating? Etc. etc. And if someone is on medication, that is also going to block the body because it has a massive impact on your body. Like antibiotics will kill all the microbiome up to like 8 to 9 months, which then lets all the nasties in. And again, you can't digest the food. And so, all of this is going to make it very hard for the fix to get to the areas in the organs. So saying that, you need more time, and you also need to be aware of what you're doing. And I believe also mindset is really, really important, because if you are a fairly negative person, right? Fairly negative. So you see the negative sides, and human beings, we tend to attract to the negative very, very often. And the thing is, with this overweight and having lots of fat on the body and not being where you want to be, the thing is that you have this image of yourself that you look in a particular way. And sometimes it's very hard to create a new image of you, the healthier you, the slim you. Why? Because you keep going over and over the self-talk that maybe you've always been big, that you've always been overweight, that you, oh, I love sugar, like I've always been overweight. I love cake. I just love cake. I love coffee and cake. I tried so many diets and it just doesn't work. And so what happens, you're programming your brain over and over and over and over again. And if anything, be aware of how much you actually complain about yourself and where you are. And we are really bad at that, very bad at that. And that's how you're going to self-sabotage. And there's also trauma related to weight. So possibly if you've been overweight for a period of time, growing up, it was tough to be overweight. You were bullied so much that you didn't, and then of course you have this image and you don't feel good about yourself. So emotions and feelings have a lot to do with it. So look, I've mentioned it before, but the big reasons really, apart from all of that, is losing the weight is really the high glucose, the insulin levels, and the insulin affects about 100 metabolic processes. So once you have glucose in your bloodstream, you know, the insulin becomes really tired and it just starts depositing all this fat everywhere. And it's not just about, you know, as I said, the chocolate foods, it's also the starchy foods, all the wheat products. The wheat products, that is so damaging to our body. It actually makes holes in our digestive system. So if you can imagine like a conveyor belt, and every time when you're having wheat, it makes like these holes, right, in the villi. And the villi is like, say like on a conveyor belt of cars, right? So one person here puts on the wheels, another person puts on this, and another person puts on that, all the way down the conveyor belt. Well, you have all the digestive tract. And what happens when you have all these holes from all the inflammation of food, which is sometimes dairy, it's oat, it's breads, even so much insulin, if you have too much fruit, all of that sort of stuff, what will happen is that because of the holes, all the nutrients start falling down in the wrong spot. And you're causing all this inflammation. This is your colitis and diverticulitis and all the bloating. When you have a lot of fruit and vegetables and starchy, you'll bloat at the end of the day. 100% you'll bloat. 100%. Can't digest it. So the thing is that we need to be really, we need to understand how it works within our body just a little bit, so that when you're gravitating towards a food, you're going to think, oh, hang on a moment. Jane was saying that if I have that, then this is going to happen. And this is what I do very, very often. I was very, I'm very grateful for my father, who's now passed, but he used to say to me, you know, he wasn't religious, so to speak, but he used to always say to me, Jane, you look at a food and you say to yourself, is that good for me? Is that good for me? And immediately you're going to get a yes or a no. And I didn't know, but I was tapping into my intuition. And so then in my life, I've looked at food and I think, is that good for me? And in fact, if I can't get food, then what happens is I don't eat. I'll then go on a water fast. And that's just what I do, because I do not want the food going into my body, because I know the chemical pathways and how it's going to interrupt everything. So the thing is, this subject is very complex. How do you speed up the process? You reduce the glucose in your body. That's what you do. You regulate your hormones. You find out what hormones are dysregulating. You do that. And you might think, well, you know, that seems to be really easy, but for a lot of people, it's actually not. It's not easy. But anyhow, that's sort of what I'm coming to the conclusion of. It's the insulin spikes, the food that we're eating, which is counteracting what the pHix is wanting to do. If you're having all this sugar and the fat, it's just overloading your body. And you're living in a dream world if you think that 1.2 mil twice a day is going to really counteract the damage of the mitochondria. And remember, like I've written the book on anti-aging. This is so important, especially for women. Who doesn't want to age? I don't want to age. Let's not age. What happens is when you have the insulin coming into your body, you have glucose problem. And what happens, you have glycation, which is like aging you within. So a baby, the white cartilage is white. As if you open up a 100-year-old person, it's going to be brown. So every time when you have the sugar and the starch, you are aging your mitochondria and they become very tired. And if this is perpetual in your life, you're going to age really, really quickly. This is why you can see a 50-year-old that looks like a 30-year-old, and you can see a 50-year-old looking like a 70-year-old. Give me a photo of anyone and I can tell you what they eat. It's all reflective. So as much as we want to put all this stuff on our face, which glycation is all this stuff that women do and all the Botox and all that sort of stuff, which is completely damaging, what we need to do is have a look at internal. What are we doing internally to stop that?
Could it be that some people's perception, now I'm going to say perception because it may be perception, it may not be reality. Some people are finding they feel more bloated whilst taking this product as opposed to not taking it.
Yeah, see, that's another really good question. And I believe when you bloat, you have a lot of fermentation in the gut. And that happens when you're having starchy food and insulin food, glucose. And so the thing is that with the bloating, it could be that the body is trying to regulate itself. Because if you have gut issues and you've always had gut issues, this could, because remember, it's bitter. It helps with digestion. So if you're continually having that bloating, I would say 100% keep going, but use the bottle and then slowly to, add the doses. So you'd want to have probably say 10 drops like in the morning and 10 in the afternoon maybe, and see how you go. But I believe that it's because of what it's doing internally, which is a good thing. But I also believe that there's some sort of damage in the gut somewhere. So it's either like a leaky gut, which I was talking about, how you have, holes in the gut, the conveyor belt. This is how autoimmune happens. When you've got holes, the vitamin C goes, the autoimmune comes up and says, hey, buddy, you're not meant to be here. You're not meant to be here. So that's how your autoimmune sort of happens. And so you're going to get bloated when there's inflammation. So we need to reduce the inflammation as soon as possible. But I would say just slower in the dose, but keep going. But saying that really briefly, you have an anaphylactic shock on certain things, hops might not be for you. It could be like 1 in 1,000.
Yeah.
And you'd need to go to a naturopathic practitioner to regulate that. Yeah.
Awesome. Jane, I've seen a comment come up from Julie, and I have heard it before. Is there any benefit to having more than 2 doses a day?
No, I don't believe so. No, I don't believe so.
Awesome.
I don't.
And I know that Nathan has said to have the doses a bit closer together than the 9 hours because you don't want it to sort of start dropping. So he suggests first thing in the morning and then maybe like 2 p.m. in the afternoon rather than waiting until 5 or 6 o'clock at night. And also you're going to be more active then as well. Because initially they were saying, to take it before you go to bed, but that's probably not the best idea. I have on the odd occasion when I've forgotten, I now have an alarm set in my phone in the afternoon to remind me to take it, because sometimes when you're busy, I never have a problem in the morning because it's the first thing I do, but sometimes you get busy. So a little tip is pop it in your 2 p.m. on your phone as an alarm, just for a bit of a reminder. So there's no benefit to taking more, but there could be a benefit for some people, as you said, who are a little more sensitive to maybe start a little slower. And that's the beauty of the tincture bottle, is you can regulate the drops. Which is fantastic. So Jane, you're giving so much value tonight. And the interesting thing is, Jane, as you can see, is already in a healthy body. But Jane, you even had fat loss benefits yourself, even though you didn't have much to release. You've got a beautiful trim body.
I know.
Is that because your body was already very healthy and it just how did
Yeah, well, I was sort of, you see, I did overeat during the COVID time because I wasn't as active, remember, because we had all these lockdowns and I started to overeat, right? So I was eating healthy because I'm probably 90% carnivore and 10% keto. That's just what I do. And that's just good for my body. It's not good for everyone, but it's just, I found it to be highly effective for myself. And so the thing is that you can overeat, which is more calories, and then it's like calories in, calories out. So for people to maintain that weight, must be having the same sort of calories generally, right? And so what I did was I got up to about 69.5, and you might think, oh my gosh, that's like really thin. But it wasn't, because I had a bit of the belly fat happening. And I've never had that before. I've never had that. So my ego stepped in. My ego stepped in. And so then I thought, okay, I'm going to do this for myself. Like, why not? You have to be a product of the product. You can't be taking the product and then, you know what I mean? Like, you can't be. You have to live and breathe it in a way. And so, because I'm an all-in type person, I don't do things halfway. That messes with my brain. I'm either in or I'm out. And when I spoke to you, Lillian, I was in. I'm in, right? And so my personal results are I've lost nearly close to 6 kilos, and I've been on it for 4 weeks. Admittedly, I'd already gone off sugar, and I don't have wheat because I bloat at the end of the day when I have that, because it's not good for my body, and I don't want to age. I don't want to age. So I'm not into cooking myself. The glycation, I want to like slow that down a lot. And because I see a lot of cancers and autoimmune diseases and all these other issues, it's sort of a negative positive response. But I see and I go, I don't want that. I've been sick in my life, so I do understand that. But for me, 2 things is, one, I've lost the fat, which is amazing. I still have about 4 more kilos to go, but I'm on that. That'll be in the next, I'd say, 4 to 6 weeks. And also I think I'm sleeping better. That took around 2 weeks to kick in, but before I was a very light sleeper. And I think women are, because we're programmed to listen to babies. So we're very light sleepers. That's our job. Men, on the other hand, will sleep through a baby crying. But if they hear someone at the door at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're up. It's just a man thing. We're programmed. I inherited, I think we're just programmed for that, right? And so for me, when I started taking it, then I started to sleep like solid. So I have these deep, solid sleeps. And I think for me, that obviously, and I haven't really gone into the biochemistry of the vagus nerve and how it modulates, because I just don't have time in this container. Some people on the call that really don't believe anything that I say, or parts of not what I believe, and that's all really good, because it makes the world go round with people's different opinions and beliefs. But I would say, if that's the case, then research what I've actually said, because that's what I do. If I hear something that I'm not 100% correct, I won't knock it on the head and say, oh, I don't think that's true. No, that's not true. I don't do that. I write it down and go, well, what if that could be true? What if that could be true? Let me do the research on it and let me find out for myself. Let's ask the right people. And so that's how beliefs have sort of changed, I guess. And this is what we're all about with the pHix. It's bigger than just the pHix, because we're building a massive community of like-minded people in the health space, helping ourselves, but we're also helping other people. And that's what really, really, really excites me, that we have this container to actually do that in.
I know you've covered a lot of it already, but are there any things that kind of really stand out that you might have not even thought this product might help with, maybe at the start?
Yeah, like there's really a lot, because my brain, I gravitate to positive stuff. It's just me, right? I just gravitate to positive stuff. And this is what I hear from my people is blood pressure has gone down. They stopped taking I say they need to monitor their blood pressure. I do not ever say go off any medication. That's not my role, right? However, I found people have decreased their blood pressure. Quite a few people, the visceral fat, they're losing weight. They're losing centimeters. They're feeling so much better. I have one person who said she felt like she was actually on steroids when she took it for the first couple of days. And she's a physically fit PT trainer, right? She's a really good friend of mine. And I tell you what, she is like going gangbusters because she's having such a good result. What else have I got? Oh, it's really like every day, like I'm hearing it and I just think, oh my gosh, look what we have. Look what we have. Because the majority of people are getting incredible results, incredible results. And so we have a small group of people that don't, but we can tweak that. We can work together and tweak it. You know, we can look at the insulin levels. We can look at other things. You know, I wouldn't just stop it. It's just your body needs more time, and just be really patient. That's all I can say. And I'd say that to many people. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. So if you are on the call and you've been feeling maybe a little bit despondent, that maybe it's not working the way you'd like it to, or why am I not getting the results? Hopefully, boy, what Jane has shared tonight, I know for me, for all the benefits I'm receiving, and not just around fat loss, I'm on this for the long game. I'm with you on that, Jane, because I'm seeing so many benefits, especially around cognition, around pain and inflammation, sleep. Like, to me, it's just a little all-rounder. Like, and if we release some fat on the side, yay, that's a great, it's more like the fat loss is a side benefit to all the other benefits. But thank you, Jane. Stay well and stay healthy.